49ers Ultimate Report. This is John J., your 49ers reporter, opinionist, analyst, and die-hard fan. Welcome to the second episode of the Candlestick Point Report. Right there, you know who's going to be on this show, and of course, part of the Gridiron Podcast Network. As I mentioned, this off season, as the season starts to move away from the draft and everything, there's not going to be a lot of things to talk about. So we have a great podcast for the 49er fans on this channel who always support this channel. Also for the NFL fans as well. This is the only place you get 49ers news and NFL news on the 49ers Ultimate Reports. But let's just jump right into the show. So welcome everybody to the 49er faithful and all the NFL fans who follow my channel. This is the Candlestick Point Report. This is my second episode. For those who do not know what is going on, let me explain again to those who are brand new to the program, what are we doing? As I mentioned, this is the 49ers Ultimate Report, and we have a great show right there. There is the logo right there, the Candlestick Point Report. For those who don't know, Levi Stadium has never been the stadium of the 49ers, only in the recent years. They used to play at Candlestick Park. I'm from the city. My co-host, the second guy from the show, he's also from the city. That's why we're doing this great show, man. How are you doing, man? Shifty, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm good. Just working on a whole bunch of different things. Work outside of YouTube has been super busy. But, I've just been kind of really getting into looking at like draft prospects, doing mock drafts. My favorite thing that I'm actually working on right now, I have a bit of like a project/documentary that I'm working on, covering a certain era of 49ers football. Not a great era, but the Mike Nolan era. So I'm working on that, shooting to have that out maybe end of the month. But beyond that, man, just excited for the draft, looking at all the 49er news, NFL news, and it's good to be back with it's good to be back on the Candlestick Point Report. San Francisco represent with my boy John J. It's good to see you.
Yes, and I am so glad that this came. The first episode was so great, and now, as I mentioned, this is going to be an off-season podcast. Once the draft and the official season, everything is done, and then the long off-season, this is going to be a regular show. So this is basically our part 2 of the Candlestick Point, premiere, and we're going to continue to do this starting from the month of May all the way leading up to the start of training camp. This is going to be a weekly off-season show starting in May, and I'm glad that me and Shifty are doing this great project together. Let's say hello to those in the chat, and of course, it's my boy Carcast. What's up, man? He says, "What's up, John J? What's good, my G? What's good, my G?" He says, "How are you doing? I'm doing great." And of course, the Candlestick Point podcast name is Fired 100. Who thought of it? It was both of our ideas because we're both from the city and we wanted to incorporate something. And the Candlestick Park, it's still hallowed grounds, even though the stadium is not there no more. It's a reminder. We still have fans here in the city of San Francisco. And when you have a great podcaster like this guy right here and the guy over here, that's always fun to have. He says, "Are these every Wednesday?" Not yet. Right now, this is just, we're still working on it. There's a lot of things we're going to go through. He's a busy man. I'm busy with my stuff on YouTube. But starting in May, we're going to figure out a schedule that works for us, and will be a weekly show after the month. So once May starts, probably in the second week of May, we'll have a permanent schedule. And then Crazy Juice, he says, "Sup, John J." All right. So before we jump into the show, I want to get your thoughts. What's on your mind? What you want to talk about before we talk about the topics of today's show. So Shifty, what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about before we start the show?
There's for me, I'm all in about the draft right now, so I'm pretty stoked to talk about, who we might take in the second round, who are like some of your favorite players, some of my favorite players. Of course, I think we're going to touch on it in a little bit. Of course, there's the whole Leebo Samuel stuff going on, but But yeah, for me, I'm all about the draft and then working on my little documentary dealio. So it's kind of interesting going back and doing a lot of research back into those Mike Nolan era days, 2005 to 2008. But yeah, man, I think it's 2 weeks or so to the draft. I think 2 weeks from tomorrow. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun. I don't know if you're going to be live streaming it or what you're going to be doing for the draft, John, but I know for me, day 2 and day 3, I will be live streaming. Ideally, like the whole day, basically rounds 2 through 7. Ideally, all of it, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I can't wait. Not even just for the Niners, but even just for the draft to see who goes where. If there's any crazy draft day trades, I mean, we've seen just like the wildest NFL offseason that I can remember. So maybe there's still a whole bunch more craziness to happen. Maybe Garoppolo, who knows if he gets traded or something crazy happens. So, but yeah, there's certainly things, even though it's a relatively quiet, time of the year. There's not a ton going on necessarily, but still things to talk about, which is good.
Yeah. Piggybacking off that, about what I'm going to be doing. Basically, I'm going to be doing the day 1, basically the first round. The Niners don't have a first round pick. There's a possibility, not 100% guaranteed, that we could move up in the first round. I don't really see that happening, but I will still do the first round, 1 to 32. Even though the Niners are not going to be in there, there's going to be still a lot of drama. Things can happen. You never know what can happen. And then on day 2 and day 3, so basically round 2 and 3, after the draft is over, I'm going to be doing a little reaction. And then on the third day, 4 to 7, after that, I will be doing another reaction. So that is what I'm going to be doing for the draft as well. And of course, yes, I'm also focusing on the draft. We're going to talk about the draft as well. And I want to say, Crazy Juice he says, sup to Shifty. So Crazy Juice,
Crazy?
He's a huge fan of yours. And then for whatever the reason, he says, Ayukin that like button. I really appreciate that. And of course, I have to use my voice. Niners all damn day is in the house. I don't care if you live in San Francisco or Southern or the Bay Area or Southern California, or like Damien Lee, who's in Texas, or David in Utah, or my boy Carcast in the New Jersey East Coast area. It doesn't matter. It's Niners all damn day. David says, sup John J with no H. Thank you. Shifty with H. It's all about the Niners and the horror. Those other teams. David is funny. And he says, and Niners all damn day says, all damn day, David. And of course, we were just talking about this guy, the famous CG Ruthless Sports. And for those
Good to see you, CG.
And for those who don't know, you were on his late hangout stream. So I don't know if you had a fun time on that stream.
It was good. It was a fun time, and especially because I got to talk up the Warriors a little bit. I think they just beat the Lakers that day. But overall, good times, It's always good talking football, talking sports.
Mm-hmm. And Carcast 100 and fired. All right. So let's talk about, what's going on. I think everyone, is the sky is falling. The sky is falling. And for those who don't know what that means, it's basically people are like, oh, man, it's bad. It's so bad what's going on. But the 49ers' latest news, again, this is going to be nonstop talking until the Niners give them a contract, or if probably the worst case scenario that nobody wants to hear, if the Niners are going to do what they did with DeForest Buckner and ship them off, which I don't really think is going to happen. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the Leebo Samuel contract situation. Of course, the social media, and now he wants $25 million, and, he's not happy with the team. So I just want to get your thoughts on the Leebo Samuel situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting one because we saw last season just how good Leebo Samuel can be. I mean, he was an all-pro. I mean, when you factor in his receiving, his running, even through a touchdown pass, just what he means to this offense, to the team. I think so many players feed off of like what Leebo Samuel does. Of course, he's one of like the Yak brothers. He's ridiculously good. Now, the 49ers, I think, are in a little bit of a pickle here just because they would ideally like to see Leebo Samuel maybe replicate that or maybe have multiple years of like top tier production before they pay him big money. Leebo Samuel's also missed some time with injuries too. So, maybe they're a little bit hesitant to give that super big contract to Debo with that in mind. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways it can go. I ultimately do think that we will sign Debo. It could end up being around $25 million a year. And you know how like the numbers, like whenever we see the contracts, it's like, well, what are the real numbers? They always post like the big time numbers. And then it's like, well, what's the guaranteed money? What's this, that, and the other? And at the end of the day, like the NFL makes so much money. The cap situation always just gets bigger. There's always more cap. So I think we absolutely should sign him to a long-term deal, but just because of what he does. But I think in a perfect world, he would play this coming season on his current contract, and then we sign him to a crazy deal just so we know that we get that back-to-back years of like elite production because we're going to be paying him elite money. So yeah, it's really, of course Debo wants to get paid and he knows how good he is. So, and I completely understand that. I think there'll be a compromise, and I think what the 49ers will end up doing is probably paying him the money that he wants, but maybe instead of like a 5-year deal, maybe it's like a 3-year deal. So let's say if Debo is maybe not living up to it, at least we're not tied to it for 5 years. But also that could actually work to Debo's benefit that in 3 years' time, he's due for another crazy big contract if he plays up to the contract. So, of course, if you're a fan of other teams, especially in our division, you're hoping that we trade him away. I just don't. He's too young. He's too good. He fits exactly what we do. He's perfect for this offense. So I don't envision him being traded unless he is like, I'm out of there. I don't want to play there anymore. And I just don't see how that could happen. I mean, basically, he's on a really good team with a really good coach, with a really good, who I think is going to be a great young quarterback, and he's the focal point of the offense. So I don't think he could go anywhere else where he gets the ball more. I don't necessarily think he can go to another team that's set up for success like we are. So I think at the end of the day, we'll figure it out. Just like with Kittle, with Fred Warner, the DeForest Buckner one, that's a good point that you bring up, that we did trade DeForest Buckner. And, that's I just don't think it's going to happen with Debo. I just think Debo's too good. I think what may end up happening is maybe like Ayuk ultimately becomes the odd man out, or maybe we move on from Jawan Jennings down the road if he wants a big contract. But I just don't see Debo getting traded.
Yeah, I will agree. What CG says, Debo will get a contract no later than training camp, which is still a big possibility as well.
I agree with that.
Again, and then of course, one NFL prospect that we could get is Jason Poe. So I wanted to say that as well. Apparently, he's very energetic. Debo will get less than $25 million. No disrespect, he's got to prove it. So speaking of this contract, I just pulled up Trent Williams contract, and I wanted to read this to the fans. And basically, his base salary was $1.5 million. That was his base salary. He had 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of bonuses. That if Trent Williams got everything, the maximum he was going to get paid was $8 million. So wait a second, didn't we pay him $23.02 million for 6 seasons? That's how they restructured the contract. So it's kind of funny who Trent Williams. So where is the rest of that money? So let me pull that contract. So basically, the cap hit for him this year was about $8 million. Next year is about $14 million cap hit. That's how much he can make, but he's only going to be making $7 million, and he has 4 different types of incentives and bonuses that he has to get if he wants all that money. In 2023, he finally gets a $20 million contract with again more bonuses that can go up to $26 million. So what does that mean? That in the last 3 years of that contract, if he's still on the team, he's going to be making 32 million, 34 million, 36 million. That's how they restructured that contract. So how we basically got Trent Williams, and I think we're gonna do the same thing with Leebo Samuel. He will be probably paid maybe like, as I said, 25 to 29 million. He's not gonna hit the 30 million. I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. I do think if Jimmy Garoppolo's off the books, they're gonna pay him $27.5 million, but they're gonna put simple base salary, and then because of his injury history, if he wants the full 27.5 million, he has to stay healthy. So I think that's what they're going to do with him. If he doesn't like that deal, then you have to move on from him. But that's how the Niners restructure contracts. So that's just my feeling on that.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. And here's the thing: the cap is so complicated and stuff. I'm no expert by any means on the cap. I think for me, initially I was always thinking, well, this is how much they're getting paid a year, so that's what their cap hit's going to be. But there's so many, like you mentioned, there's so many like incentives and bonuses and all this other crazy stuff that gets factored in. So there's definitely ways to work around it. So, and here's how I put it. I'll put it this way: even though, look, the Saints lost a lot of good players in free agency, but heading into free agency this year, they were $70 million over the cap. And now they have cap space. Apparently they got under the cap. So there's ways to do it. Now, again, yeah, they lost a lot of good players, but I mean, they still have a relatively good team, but there's ways to manipulate the cap. The Packers, obviously they traded away Devontae Adams, and I really don't want the Niners to get into that situation where we're trading away our best players like we kind of had to do with Buckner. But to me, I think we have to go all in for the next couple of years, simply because we have Trey Lance on that rookie deal. You know what I mean? So when we have that quarterback who's only making like small money, that's when we have to go all in. So if we do that, I think we can have success. Then, of course, down the road, we're going to have to pay Trey Lance, and that's going to be, who knows how much of a contract that'll be. But I think we got to go all in these next couple of years, and that means we got to keep Leebo Samuel around, and Jimmy's got to go. I mean, at this point, we're just kind of waiting for that to happen. Even if it ends up just being, look, hey, he gets cut, so be it. We got to pay other players. We got to think about Bosa. Bosa's probably about to be in the, this year, next year, he'll be like one of the highest paid guys and, non-quarterbacks in football probably. So,
yeah. Let me say hello to my boy Seahawks Eddie, one of the most respectable Seahawks fans. I'm so glad. I'm good friends with this dude. He's a really good dude. He says, "What's up, John J?" CG says Trent Williams is more proven. I can understand the pay that he got. True, it's team friendly contracts, and we need to do pay cuts. Cool. All right. Let's move on to the next thing. Again, it's still Leebo Samuel, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I was actually thinking about this because I know in the recent years, probably in about like 10 to 15 years, players, have been, a little bit very moody when they're still under contract. And I remember back in the day when I was a child, contract negotiation was not as hectic as it is. Like players are removing Instagrams. Kyler Murray, did the same thing, but it wasn't a big deal. But Kyler Murray said he wants to be paid very fairly. So Leebo Samuel did the same thing. Of course, other players have done the same thing. Tyreek Hill got traded to Miami. Looks like he wanted to get paid. They couldn't because they're paying Patrick Mahomes. Devontae Adams made it very clear, he wanted a good deal, and the Packers couldn't do it because they paid Aaron Rodgers. We saw how that situation happened. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Is Debo handling this contract situation well or not? Or is the media just painting a picture that is like basically just the media doing what the media does?
Well, I think the media is definitely doing what the media does. Now, has Debo handled himself perfectly? Probably not. I mean, we'd all like to think that, we would be a little bit more mature with regards to not deleting all the Instagram stuff, whatever. I don't think he's conducted himself really badly, though. I mean, Debo hasn't been active. I mean, he's liked a couple of tweets. He's liked a couple of pictures, which how old is Debo? Like 24, 25, 26 maybe?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty normal for a person of that age to like things. And, you know, he's an amazing football player. He was arguably the best offensive weapon in the entire league last year. And he's like, I feel like I should be paid for that. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Now, he hasn't been doing interviews where he's like, screw the Niners or I won't play on this contract. At least I don't think so. I mean, I tend to try and avoid a lot of the Debo talk because I think a lot of it's just kind of BS, really. But you're right. I mean, I think players back in the day would maybe handle things differently. But when you have like, you think about it, like these guys are on their phones and you imagine like their phones are just blowing up. Like, you deserve to get paid. I mean, he's only human too, so he's going to be affected by it. Then you have to think about, well, his agent. His agent will get a cut of whatever his contract is. So his agent's probably like, you got to demand this, you got to demand that. So, has he been perfect? No, but I think overall he's handled it better than a lot of other players have. So, that's pretty much what I got to say about it. But yeah, I'm not in on all the ins and outs and everything that's been said, simply because a lot of that stuff, whether it's on Twitter or whatever, I just, I kind of have other things to do. So
Like for me, I'm gonna keep it real 100. When I do YouTube, I do my show, but again, I have a life, so I don't know how these people. And I'm not trying to take any shots at anyone because right. You have a job. I started working. I've been working for a couple of months now. It's fun. I've been interacting with people, but I'm not sure why people are always on social media. Like, are they at work when their boss is not looking, and then whatever. I'm not going to go a little bit too mean because I'm trying to be nice. But the point of the matter is, you must have a lot of time to take all these stories serious. Now, this is my point of view. This is just my point of view, how I look at this. Leebo Samuel is under contract. That's number one. You're still being paid money. Yes, you're not being paid like Devontae Adams. He's been in the league longer than you, man. Tyreek Hill, been in the league longer than you, man. Okay? Suck it up. I'm not trying to be kind of messed up. And listen, I'm way older than Debo. Debo's more athletic than me. He's playing for the 49ers. I'm on the sideline on my couch watching the games. But you could tell that, players will be like, you know what, I'm not happy. Back in the day, say, I'm not happy, but I'm under contract. I'm being paid. After that, then their agent will say, all right, let's talk to other teams. Hopefully that scares the team and, we'll get them better contracts. That's how it was back then. Like when free agency was created, free agency is still very young. It was starting around 94, 95. Back then, when you were drafted, you were on that team, for your career. Today, now, players have the more power to move. So the older generation, just like my boy Mike Schumann, former 49er Super Bowl winning wide receiver who was on the program last year, said the same thing. We did not have that luxury. We didn't have that luxury. So now these players have all the power in the world. And Debo, I think he's handled it. I think okay. I think, taking your pictures down is going to cost media storm, media fire. And at the end of the day, I would give Debo probably like between 70 and 80% composure. Could be better, but as I feel, I think he's done well. And the media, this is good, news for the media because again, there's nothing to talk about. So if they're able to talk about Debo, for an extra week, it really helps the media. So that's my thoughts about that.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. That makes a lot of sense. Now, yeah, I've seen a couple of comments come in. First off, YTC Productions. What's up? How you doing? Yeah, I think when both John and I were talking about that, being on social media thing, I mean, for me, it's a case of, I definitely choose not to be on all that social media. I'm not, in no means am I taking a shot at anyone by saying that. I know that I think everyone has, full lives and stuff, but I choose to avoid a lot of that. I'm not one to look at every rumor on Twitter because most of them, it seems like they just kind of end up not being true. But yeah, I mean, people can definitely manage their time and still be, do their thing and spend time on social media. I just choose not to do it as much as others.
Yeah. All right. Let me catch up with some of the comments. All right. So CG said, let's trade Jimmy Garoppolo for Jimmy John sandwich. And
Jimmy Johns would say no.
anyway, I don't know. I don't know if where you live, in your area, Shifty, if there's Jimmy John's, but I don't think there's any Jimmy John's in the city.
I don't think so.
I know that's. Hey, I tell people, the community, we do not have a lot of stuff like the Pizza Hut that was near my house. They're gone. So a lot of places have left. So it is what it is. And I just wanted to read that because I've never had Jimmy John's. I remember Julian explained me he was getting a fair deal back then, or else he wanted to stay as a 49er. Of course, Julian Peterson. Yep. Unfortunately, he could have went to any other team, and he decided to go to the Seattle Seahawks. Yep. And of course, Mr. YTC's in the building. He wants to say hello to us. YTC says, well, I've mastered my time very well when it comes to streams, and it'll be on social media while still making an income. It struggles, but I managed to find ways because it's the workhorse mentality. Nice right there. That's a gamer right there. That's a gamer. All right, my old man taught me. That's wonderful. Great. Yeah, some really good mentors. Nelson, I have to say hello to my boy Nelson. He says, God bless, bro. Niners all day. Shout out to Nelson. Very nice guy. Very good dude. And then everyone's saying hello to everybody. And let's say hello to Corey Davis, who's in the house. What's up, Corey Davis?
What's up, Corey?
Shout out to my boy Corey Davis. I'm in the Corey Davis fan club. I'm a huge fan of Corey Davis. One day I'm going to get his autograph. Corey Davis, a man. All right. CG says social media is a great way to interact with people.
Very true.
And remember, social media, of course, there's some good things and bad things about social media. I just don't recommend following too many because, there's sometimes things that are going to just explode your head. YTC says, yes, I would take Debo's unfollowing the Niners to a big deal. Well, unfortunately, some people are making a big deal. They're like, I don't want to sound mean, but some of them are like, it's raining cats and dogs. If you're old enough to get that expression. And when everyone's saying hello to everybody. All right. Jimmy John's bomb sandwich. Now you're making me hungry, man. All right. YTC says, I just use social media to get news on my team and world and stats whenever I bet. That's basically it. Yeah. I personally prefer not to have social media, but I do need social media to, reach out to, people, contacts for shows. All right, let's talk about something not so big. Of course, this is last week's news. Niners news. We signed wide receivers. First, we signed Marcus Johnson, and we also signed Malik Turner. Marcus Johnson, he's been in the league, I think, since 2016. Been with 4 different teams. His recent team was, I think, the Indianapolis Colts. And Malik Turner recently played with the Dallas Cowboys and a few other teams as well. What are your thoughts on these signings? What do they really mean?
Yep. I like both of them. I mean, they're I'm assuming they're just kind of 1-year deals, essentially, for the vet minimum. But yeah, overall, I think they're solid depth pieces. I know Malik Turner was decent last year. I think, and we're talking for like a number 4, number 5 wide receiver at the kind of back end of the roster. But to me, they're both really good sized. I think they're both about 6'1", 6'2", 200. And I believe they're both very fast. So to me, that kind of says that what we're really looking for is that aspect of like a player's ability where if we can get speed, so we can get those guys to just, pull those safeties deep, then you get Debo and Ayuk and Kittle. kind of, doing those crossing routes across the middle on the shorter intermediate routes. That really opens things up a lot. Do I think either guy will have like a significant impact? No, probably not. But I don't think that's what the signings are for. So, I mean, I like them. I think they've both had, relative success. They can both provide some value on special teams. And it seemed like, I think it was with Malik Turner. I remember seeing like a number of comments and people like, I think it was like Cowboys fans talking about him. They're kind of like bummed to lose him. So that's usually a pretty decent sign that the guys, whether he's a good guy or a good player, that, it's kind of like when we lose a certain player that we're like, if it's like an Arden Key, we're like, damn it, we didn't bring back Arden Key. Jaguar fans know, hey, he's a good player. We're not like, hey, we're so happy to lose someone like that. Overall, yeah, solid signings, solid depth. I mean, I think the only real guys who had NFL experience in the wide receiver room before we signed these guys were Debo, Ayuk, and Jawan, and these are all young guys. So to get, two players who've been around the league a little bit longer, I think is never a bad thing. And, I could still see us drafting a wide receiver in the draft. Maybe we sign like a veteran guy just to have that experience, maybe bringing back like a Mohamed Sanu or someone like that. But yeah, solid depth signings. So I'm pretty happy about it. What about you, John? What do you think?
I want to say hello to my boy Gonzalo, all the way out from the great country, international 49er fan from Belize. I told you, Niners fan base.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Gonzalo's back in the building. I don't know what time it is in Belize, but like I said, I have fans from everywhere around the globe. A lot of my fans are from the UK, which is really, really interesting. They really love the Niners out in the UK. But let's say what Gonzalo says. He said, hey, John, Jay, and Shifty. So he's shouting you out. So what is your assessment of Shanahan, Lynch handling the offseason? They still they still stuck with Garoppolo, and now Debo seems to be unhappy. So do you want to respond to Gonzalo's comment?
Yeah, man. Yeah, Gonzalo, I mean, you make a good point about Garoppolo and, potentially Debo's unhappy. Now, I think Lynch and the front office definitely overplayed their hand with Garoppolo. I think they believed that he would be worth more, and they were holding out that he would be worth more than what they thought. Plus, also, Jimmy getting that shoulder surgery, I think that also kind of threw a wrench into their plans as well. They probably weren't expecting that, from what it sounds like, at least. I think if they could go back, they probably would have gone to the Colts and been like, look, at the beginning of like free agency or whatnot, I think they would have gone to the Colts and said, hey, look, 3rd round pick. What do you think for Jimmy? Call it a trade? Cool. My guess is that Lynch maybe got a little greedy and was like, I want a 2nd round pick or 2 seconds or something like that. I mean, of course I'm speculating, but my guess is, they overplayed their hand and it kind of came back and bit them a little bit. So at the end of the day, though, I think that they've done pretty well. I mean, I think they achieved what they wanted to achieve. I mean, when you look at our biggest weaknesses last year, it was special teams, and they have for sure upgraded that. New coordinator, bunch of players who were special team aces. And then cornerback, Charvarius Ward, by all accounts, I think he's going to be awesome in this defense. He can be a true lockdown guy. And so that's a great move. And he's still really young too. So, and we have signed to a 3-year deal. So for decent money, he's not getting the crazy money like some of the other guys have gotten in free agency. Overall, I think it's gone pretty well. We brought back a lot of the guys that I did want to bring back, although I would have liked to have brought back, for me at least, I would have liked to have brought back at least one of Lakin, DJ Jones, or Kwan. All of them moving on is it's quite a bit of turnover right there, but there are ways that we can replace them. And I think, bringing back Jordan Willis, that was a really solid move. I think with giving him more time, I think he'll be really solid. I really like bringing back Maurice Hurst. He was hurt most of all of last year, but I think he has a lot of potential to have like an Arden Key-esque, blowout, have a big season. I like Kevin Givens. I like bringing back Brunskill. So I think it's a solid offseason. I wouldn't call it like an A+ because of the whole Garoppolo fiasco. And I think Debo, well, that'll get figured out.
Yeah.
I think so. Once that does, then I think we're good. Overall, I mean, I think we have to be pretty happy with it. But in a perfect world, yeah, we would have got like a second or third round pick for Jimmy. We maybe would have been able to add another player or just give Debo and Bosa their contracts. But I think it's been solid. I'm not complaining too much. How about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer Gonzalo's question, and then we'll give you my thoughts on the wide receivers. Uh, Kyle Shanahan is a real great play caller. I do think he needs to start to realize that he has to be a head coach, but he's a really outstanding play caller. What he did with Leebo Samuel this year, using them in different types of formations, the mind that he's able to have. John Lynch, in the other hand, I think he's overplayed his hands on a lot of situations, not just the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. I think I said this before free agent started and someone told me that, trust me, John, we're going to get a first round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh, how that person had to retract their statement from saying that. And I respect, all Niners opinions, but for anyone who thought we're going to get a first round pick, I'm not saying they were delusional. I'm saying that they were just overplaying their hand. And then just 4 days before the legal tampering period, Jimmy Garoppolo announced he was going to get surgery. That was not going to go well. And then with the Colts made a statement after Jimmy Garoppolo said, "We're not going to get Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not. We want a quarterback to come in and start throwing the football in OTAs. Jimmy was not going to be able to throw that ball until at least mid-July." So then you start seeing the quarterback market. It started to heat up, and a lot of teams moved quarterbacks around. Every team that needed a quarterback got a quarterback. A team that lost the quarterback got a quarterback. So Jimmy Garoppolo, like the John Lynch, really messed up that situation. And let's not just forget Solomon Thomas. And then, of course, what about Mike McGlinchey, which is still a question mark. So John Lynch has made some very questionable decisions. Of course, D Ford. So at the end of the day, you do need a general manager that knows what they're doing. But at the end of the day, I give John Lynch probably and I'm being very generous, a B minus. I give Kyle how he calls his offense, like a solid, just an A, basically like between 90 and 95%. He could get a perfect 100 if he could become a good coach. That's just my thoughts on Gonzalo's question. Back to Malik Turner and Marcus Johnson. I think Marcus Johnson is going to be a camp body. I think they sign him and they're going to try to see if he can make the roster. I don't think Marcus Johnson will be on the squad there. Malik Turner is a very interesting signing because he's not a bad wide receiver. Everywhere that he's been, as I think I remember, he was with the Dallas Cowboys. They had a bunch of wide receivers, so he wasn't the primary guy. And then he's played in a few other teams where he was never the primary guy. I think Malik Turner was a great college standout, a great college prospect, just never found an area for him. I think if he makes the team, out of these two, I think Malik Turner is the guy who's most likely to make the team. And Malik Turner is like 26, 27, so he's still in his prime. And Kyle likes to coach wide receivers. So this will be a really good depth piece, in my opinion, when it comes to these wide receivers. Yep. All right.
Okay. Oh yeah, YTC. I just saw your comment. I totally forgot about Ray Macleod. Yeah, I think we have decent depth at wide receiver now, and I wouldn't be surprised if we go into the year and if the wide receiver room looks like Debo, Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, Macleod, and Malik Turner. I think that would be pretty solid. But who knows? Maybe in the draft we get someone. Maybe there's a trade that happens. But if we did go into the season with those 5 guys at wide receiver, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah. YTC. Yeah, that is true. Also, I wanted to bring this up. He says Tyquan Thornton would be a good mid-round fit for you guys. What do you think about this guy? Do you know who this guy is?
Yes, he's an absolute speedster. I think he's To me, he would remind me a little bit of like a taller, like a bigger Marquise Goodwin, where track athlete. But you never know. We actually, Marquise Goodwin did have like one, I think it was like one pretty solid year for us, where I think he almost hit 1,000 yards or maybe just about that. But I think the name of the game with Tyquan Thornton is just electric speed. And if he's a guy where you can be like, hey, Tyquan, basically go deep. And then if he gets open, great. If not, then maybe there's a cornerback and a safety that has to cover him. And that's one less guy for Debo or Ayuk or Kittle when they get the ball in their hands to have to break a tackle from. So interesting prospect. I mean, I would think I would probably look at him more as like a 6th round pick for us, perhaps. I wouldn't draft him maybe in like the 3rd or 4th, but 6th round or so, I think it'd be worth a shot just because there's for sure potential there. Maybe he could have because Jawan Jennings was a 7th round pick, and he last year really emerged in his 2nd year. So perhaps Tyquan could have an emergence and, to give him a year or 2 in the offense, the scheme with that speed. You never know.
Yeah. Also, we have our resident Rams fan in the building. What's up, man? How are you doing? The 2022 champs. What's up, man? How are you doing, man? Anyway, hey, we have to be nice to the Rams. They right now are, the champions. But unfortunately, I feel more confident that the Niners have a better chance of winning the Super Bowl. Anyway.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're gonna look. We beat him 6 times in a row. The next season, we're gonna start another streak of 6 wins in a row.
All right, and Carcass, what's up, man? How are you? He's back. He is back. All right, let's talk about some draft news. So yesterday the 49ers hosted. They already met with Cincinnati running back Jerome Ford, who is an outstanding running back, not the top tier running back. And of course, the Niners are meeting today and working out Alabama's running back, Brian Robinson. So first of all, before I ask you the question, do you know these 2 running backs? Anything about them?
I don't know either prospect that well. Whenever I watch Cincinnati, I've always watched them for other players, whether it's Desmond Ridder, Alec Pierce, or on defense. They have a couple of defensive guys. Sauce Gardner, who we have no shot at, but Kobe Bryant, J. Sanders. Whenever I watch Cincinnati's games, I never really watch them to focus on Jerome Ford. So I couldn't tell you too much about him. I know that we did, as you mentioned here, we met with them. So clearly there's maybe some interest. And then with Brian Robinson, I don't know, was he the main back at Alabama, or maybe their kind of change of pace guy?
Yeah, he was their guy. He was their guy.
I think with Alabama players, it can be a little bit, hard to judge them because they typically have like so much quality talent. Like Alabama, half of the players at least are going to be playing on NFL Sundays. So, and when they go up against some other teams, it's a little bit skewed because some of the games they play are against not so great teams and they can just destroy them. But I don't know too much about Brian Robinson either, to be honest with you. The running backs I actually do like for us, Rashad White from Arizona State, and then Pierre Strong Jr. from South Dakota State. Those are the 2 guys. When I watch them, I could just absolutely envision them wearing red and gold and just having like an Elijah Mitchell type impact. But these 2 guys, I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with them as some other guys.
Yeah, so I did a video of Jerome Ford, and Jerome Ford basically was a 4-star recruit, and he signed in intent to the University of Alabama. And as I mentioned, when Jerome Ford went there, you had Damien Harris, you had Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris, Brian Robinson. Those were the running backs on the depth chart. Damien Harris is in the NFL with the New England Patriots. Good running back. Josh Jacobs, out of all of them, is probably the best running back because he's been doing really, really well with the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, Najee Harris was just drafted just 1 year ago to the Steelers. We have a lot to see, but you're seeing what happened. And then, of course, Brian Robinson, who was basically their number 4 running back at the time when he got there. So he didn't really get an opportunity to play there when you have all those running backs over there in Alabama. Alabama, they get all the best players. So he transferred. In the last 2 seasons, he had a really great career with the University of Cincinnati. He's a good explosive back, very big back, body back, can take the hits. Averaged almost 7 yards per carry in his time in Cincinnati. Averaged 10 yards per catch in the University of Cincinnati. And he's one of those guys that Kyle Shanahan is looking. He's looking for bell cows, someone who has a speed like him. And, of course, Brian Robinson, who basically, again, with that depth chart, didn't get a lot of playing time with those. But in his first 4 seasons, as a freshman, he redshirted. But in his sophomore season, junior season, senior season, didn't get to play a lot. But in his redshirt senior season, basically, he had a good year. Over 1,300 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns. Of course, Alabama, they are really, really good. So at the end of the day, the reason why I think this is really good is because Kyle is trying to find more running backs. He's trying to run a system, which I do think we do need a double back system, because Elijah Mitchell in his rookie year played 11 games, missed 6 games due to injury. And so we need help at the running back. So I prefer, because I haven't seen Alabama's Brian Robinson's tape, but I've seen Jerome Ford, and he's a guy who reminds me of Jeff Wilson, like a type of Jeff Wilson. Good, very explosive, very fast, not an every down guy. So that's really good. His body, is a more bigger body, so he's not more. He's basically, like a guy who can just, run the ball in between the tackles. That's why I like Jerome Ford. So, as I always would say, no matter what, offense is run by running backs. You do have to overload your running back depth. That's just how I see this situation. And the Niners have also met with other players, but I spotlight the running backs because Trey Lance is the guy. No disrespect to Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not the starter. Trey Lance is the guy. You do need a good complementary guy to help Trey Lance. And Trey Lance also runs the football. Kyle's offense is running the football. So these are really good signings. Both of them worked out with the Niners. So yesterday, one worked out today. Brian Robinson is working out. So I'm very excited to see. Hopefully one of them makes the impression. And this is a good sign that now the Niners are not going to move away from Alabama players because of Reuben Foster, because the last couple of years they try to avoid Alabama players because of Reuben Foster's reputation. So that's how I see this question. Yep.
Agreed.
All right. There's some questions. All right. Crazy Jew says, now we're going to make it 8 times in a row.
Yeah, we are.
That's great. YTC says, Brian Robbins is pretty reminds me of Rashard Mendenhall.
Yeah, former first-round pick of the Steelers, I think. Mendenhall.
I had you guys getting Jamari Slater and Cody White. I like Jamari Slater. I like him. I really do. I really, really do. All right. In my 3-round mock draft, Gonzalo says, what about O-line picks in the draft? We are quite needy at that area. Yep, we do. We do. Jamari Slater and Dylan Parham are possible picks. And I think this is a really good time to move on to this tough question. 49ers draft news with the 61st pick. The 49ers select, question mark. If you had to choose a player, and I know we don't know what the Niners are going to do, but we do see a pattern, offensive line or edge rusher. But if you were making the pick today, what are some possible options that you would select for the 49ers at 61st?
Yeah, and of course, it's going to come down to who's available. If he's available, I think Jalen Petrie would be awesome. He's like just the do-it-all safety, super athletic, makes big plays, awesome in the run game. I don't know if he'll be there. And I think offensive line, like Dylan Parham, like YTC had mentioned in the comments, that was someone that I actually, in a mock draft that I just did put out yesterday, I had us taking him. I think he could actually plug in and play left guard. Who else at 61? I mean, although we don't need a wide receiver, if Christian Watson fell, of course, he was former teammates with Trey Lance in North Dakota State. That would be really interesting. But I think, to me, I would probably, those are some of the names that kind of come to mind immediately. Now, there are certain cornerbacks. I mean, I know a lot of fans and people do like Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati. I'm definitely higher on some other players at cornerback, so I don't know if I would necessarily go Kobe Bryant. I know YTC had mentioned, I think, taking him in the 3rd round, but with the 61st pick, if there's one of the top 5 safeties, now, of course, Kyle Hamilton's not going to be there, but if Jaquan Brisker, Daxton Hill, Lewis Seen, or if Jalen Petrie are there, I think it's a nice value, talent meets need, so that would be awesome. Or else I would go offensive lineman, Dylan Parham, again, plug and play at left guard. The other guy, and it's actually pretty interesting, is I don't know if he'll be there, but offensive tackle Bernard Raymond, Central Michigan, which is where I think Joe Staley went, if I'm not mistaken. Actually has a very similar background to Joe Staley, went in as a tight end, converted to offensive tackle. But I don't know if you saw it, John Jay, but I saw that picture of Mike McGlinchey. We know he's coming off a serious injury. Not only that, he's not looking that big. So, and I know that was a big critique of McGlinchey back in 2020. So, could we be in the market for maybe an offensive tackle? I think if a quality guy like I don't know how you pronounce his name exactly, Raymond or Ryman, if he's there, that could be interesting because I'm not really sure how long McGlinchey will stick around. Especially, he was looking skinny. Like, he was looking like how Joe Staley looks now, like after his career. So, those are some names I'm kind of throwing out and thinking about.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. So for me, I actually looked at needs, and basically there are 4 players. I'm going to read the name of these 4 players. Then I'm going to put them in a ranking order and who I think the Niners should draft. And again, this is just how I do the draft. So we have the 61st pick. We basically need guard, center, corner. Those are the order: guard, center, corner, guard, center, corner. So, but at the same time, Kerry Hyder, Nick Bosa, Samson Ebukam, we do have edge rushers, but we don't have that edge rusher who is a guy who will come in and be explosive. Because Nick Bosa, we don't have to worry, but we do need that second explosive guy on the other side. So one edge rusher that's going to be in that territory, which I think is going to be, good territory, is Cameron Thompson from the University of San Diego. Another player who's also going to be there, which is a guard, and we do need guard, is Dylan Parham. Again, YTC put that in the chat. Another player who's going to be there, I think Jalen Petrie is going to be off the board. I like him. I also like a corner from the University of Washington. Those guys are going to be off the board. Okay, so you have to go who is there at the board. Kirby Joseph, another safety who's underrated, is going to be there at around that area. And of course, cornerback, another who's going to be there, is Martin Emerson from from Mississippi State. So how do I rank these guys? So we do need a corner. We did get Charvarius Ward. So at the moment, corner is not our first selection. Plus, Martin Emerson is ranked 70 to the 79th pick. That is an overreach. I will let him drop and see if he's still there at 93. Kirby Joseph is a safety, as I've been saying, safety. Again, he's between the 60 and 69 range, around that area. Could be still there at 61. But that is an okay pick. Doesn't mean that it's a bad pick. It's just an okay. Then you go with Dylan Parham, guard. Guard is the number 1. That is a good value pick. He's going to be there between 60 and 69. But I would take best available player, and I would take edge rusher Cameron Thomas, because he's ranked 50th to 59, meaning that if he's not if he's not off the board, don't be surprised if Kyle and John take him, because that's what they do. They do interior line. So my 2 draft picks will be either, if Cameron Thomas is still there at 61, that's the value pick. That is a player that will plug in and be ready to play. Or Dylan Parham, another player who can plug in and be ready to play. But I also like Kirby Joseph and Martin Emerson. Those are who I would pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, all really, really solid names right there. Martin Emerson is for sure a major draft crush of mine. Whenever I see him play, and I'm not saying that he's going to have the same career by any means, but I kind of see some like Richard Sherman in Martin Emerson. Quite physical, really smart player, aggressive. And I think if give him like a year or two working with our guys in this defense, I think he would be really, really good. I think, yeah, for me, I would agree with you that I would look at Emerson in the 3rd round. Hopefully he would be there. I don't know if the value would necessarily be there in the 2nd round. So I agree 100% there. But he's someone who, when I watched him play, again, it's just one of those guys I'm like, man, I hope he ends up a Niner, you know? But yeah, some really, really solid names. It's going to be really interesting because, as we know, every draft year, there's some crazy players who go high, way higher than we could ever expect. I think if we even look to last year, I don't think any one of us would have expected Aaron Banks to be the pick in the 2nd round. I definitely didn't. When we picked Aaron Banks, I was shocked. But yeah, there's going to be surprises. There's always surprises every year in the draft, and that's one of the great things when you watch it. Some of like the the drama or like the craziness that happens around it. So yeah, I mean, any of the guys that you mentioned, I'd be stoked to have on the team. And yeah, I'm really interested to see how it'll play out. Now, yeah, when it comes to the offensive line, I mean, if I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about Mike McGlinchey. So we'll have to see what happens there. But if we don't address offensive line in the 2nd round, there are a lot of guys who I think could be players who we could develop long term. Like Alec Lindstrom, I really like him from Boston College. I think it would be a natural fit if we drafted him, have him behind Alex Mack at center, because it sounds like Alex Mack is coming back for 1 more year. So have Lindstrom behind Mack for a year and then just plug in Lindstrom. And then, as Carcast mentioned, Cole Strange, another great scheme fit at center, maybe interior offensive line. A lot of good guys out there. Cam Jurgens is another one. So there's a lot of different directions that we can go in. Sorry, there's like crazy police sirens outside.
I know. Hey, hey, living in the city. Hey,
downtown San Francisco.
I live next to a freeway, so basically it's always like cars going fast, craziness. Anyway, let's catch up with some of the comments. I think you already picked up in some of them. I just want to read them. Crazy Jew says, yes, Joe Staley went to Central Michigan. YTC says, I have Petrie going to the Eagles. YTC says, Joseph to the Giants at 81. And then Carcast says, what's up to YTC? YTC said, what's up to Carcast? Cam Thomas, I have him going to Chicago Bears. Martin Emerson, I have him going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, of course, you just talked about him, Cole Strange. Yep. Anyway, before you guys ask your questions, so again, ask your questions right now for me or Shifty. I wanted to say something about the draft. And one of the things that I've told people is that you have the 100 big board, the 100 top prospects, that big board. And people read that big board and they put that what's that thing, that big board as that's who you got to draft at your number. Here's the problem. There's 3 types of big boards. You got the analysts and people on the media, on the sports channels doing their big board. But then you have the vertical board versus your horizontal board. So what is the vertical board? 1 to 100. Horizontal is basically 5 players at that position. So the Niners are still scouting the quarterback. So they're putting, the Pittsburgh guy, all those quarterbacks, the top 5, they're still putting them there. And then once those quarterbacks were off the board, they put the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 quarterbacks, etc. And they look at that board. Then they do it with all the other positions. whatever player is still there on that, you know, on the vertical board and their horizontal, board, that's how you do your draft grade. So my thing is very, very different when I look at the stuff. So someone says that, Martin Emerson is a guy that's going to be drafted between 70 and 79. Why? The vertical board says it, and then the horizontal board says it. For anyone who says he's a third round talent, that is wrong. Kirby Thomas is going to fall into the third round, but he's a prospect. So we need a safety. He's an okay pick for the 49ers, but the vertical board says he's a much better safety. And of course, the horizontal board. And of course, Dylan Parham is probably one of the Niners' top centers that they're looking at their big board and vertical board. But their number one value player, and again, I've never been wrong when I look at my stuff, is Cameron Thomas. He's ranked 50 to 59, so he may not be there at 61, but if he falls to 61, that's the best available player because that fits a need. When people say best available player, it's not the player that's at the top of the board because it's never that. You go the best available player. How do I know this? I had to do a vertical board and horizontal board at college. So I had to learn how to do that. That wasn't fun. So anyway, I wanted to just say that, just for fun, that I know my stuff. And I'm not trying to be arrogant or egotistical. Anyway, all right. YTC says, I live 2 blocks away from a highway, so I get the feeling. Yes. I think every major city, like, you always have sirens and, well, I don't know if you ever heard those dirt bikes, because you say you live in Tenderloin. Those dirt bikes are annoying.
Oh
My
tell me about it. Especially when it's really late at night, too.
She's like, my buddy made me ride a dirt bike in the city. Oh, the thing is so loud. But when you're out in the mountains, it's not as loud out there for whatever the reason. I don't get it.
The echo and everything off the buildings is just crazy,
Yeah. Anyway. All right. So feel free to ask your questions. If you have any questions for me and Shifty, this is your time. Hopefully we get some questions. If not, Shifty, we may have to end the program. So let's try to have the fans, interact with us because, I like interacting with the fans as well. But we had a really good show, man. We did.
Oh yeah, super fun. It's always a good time doing it. And yeah, I love draft talk and watching draft videos and all that good stuff. The one guy who's probably been, and I'll pose this question to you, for any of the guys that, like, the college players that you've watched, do you have like a favorite guy? Not like the best guy, but just someone that you were like, oh man, this player looks like maybe a great fit, or he's just like a lot of fun to watch.
Let's see. I'm gonna pull up his name because for sure he's from the University of Washington. So they call themselves UW, the University of Washington. It's one of their corners. And the reason why I say that is because they have developed in the last several years a great secondary in that program. So I'm going to try to find.
Probably what, McDuffie or Kyler Gordon.
There we go, Kyler Gordon. He's a person that's going to be drafted probably between the 33rd pick and probably like the 50th pick. And the reason why I like him is that we all know about Gardner, from Cincinnati, and all those other corners that are going to be first round, but he has the highest grade, but he is not the top corner. And like last year, everyone talked about Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn, and Asante Samuel, but the tape and the film said Asante Samuel is the best corner. It doesn't mean that those other two guys. What happened to J.C. Horn? Suffered an ACL, didn't play. They don't know what he's going to be in his second season. Patrick Surtain had great moments, but can he be tested against the elite competition? Now, yes, he had a good rookie year. Again, the Broncos defense are really, really good. And when you have a good pass rush, it really, really helps you out. So I really like Kyler Gordon because he has one of the highest grades out of a corner that's going to be drafted between 33rd pick and the 50th pick. I've been doing my draft stuff finally, and again, I look at an unbiased approach, and Asante Samuel is going to be the best corner in that class. Trust me, in the next 3 years.
Oh,
Okay.
I agree with you 100%, John Jay. Not only that, when we took Aaron Banks, I think Asante Samuel was maybe picked like one or two picks ahead of Banks or after Banks, but it was right around there. And I was really hoping that we'd take Asante Samuel, but obviously it didn't work out.
All right, so now we got some questions in. He says, I wonder if the Niners will be interested in trading up to snag up Jaquan Brisker, another guy I really like, or Lewis Seen. So what are your thoughts about these players?
Yeah, they're both really solid safety prospects. Brisker from Penn State and then Seen from Georgia. Now, Seen has that lightning speed as well. I think he ran like a 4.3 or maybe like a low 4.4 40. I could see it happening just because to me, safety is still for sure a need for us. So maybe if they see one of those guys, and I would also throw in, although I think they'll probably be gone quite a bit earlier, but like Daxton Hill from Michigan, Jalen Petrie from Baylor. Now, let's say if they see them available at like pick 50 or maybe even pick 55 or so, maybe they're like, hey, when you were talking about like your vertical board, maybe the Niners have those guys really high up. So if they're available in that mid-second round, they might be like, look, it's worth it to go up and get a guy who we maybe have ranked really high. Plus, it fills a need. So I could absolutely see that happening. Now, it would depend on what would they trade. I think we have our 2 third-round picks. We have a couple of third-round picks next year as well from like the hiring of Mike McDaniel and Saleh and Martin Mayhew. So we have an abundance of third-round picks. So maybe we use one of those next year to move up in this year's draft. So I wouldn't hate the move by any means because again, I think if the talent meets the need, meets the value, it's just a match made in heaven right there. So any of those guys, any of the top 5 safeties, I would be happy to have, even if we have to trade up and give up a little bit more to get them.
Yeah. So Crazy Jew says where he lives, he gets helicopters. So that's one thing. All right, let's get some of these non-question comments out the way. CG's back. And of course, I agree with CG. I was mad during the draft when the Chargers picked them up.
Damn them.
All right, so let's go back to the question. Yeah, Jaquan Brisker, I really, really like. I think I have him higher than Petrie. But as I mentioned, some players I am a little bit, more biased towards for whatever the reason. But if Jaquan Brisker, Petrie, or Kirby, I think Kirby, what was his name? Joseph, Kirby Joseph are there, and we do really need to strengthen up our secondary. We do need another safety. I want Jaquan Brisker. All right, YTC says yeah, these guys are two guys I would love in my team at second round. So he likes those guys as well. For pass rushers, I would love Benito Thomas and Enger. I can't pronounce that.
Inagbare, I think is yeah.
All right. Yep. Yeah, but yeah, I wanted to put him as one of my guys, but he's going to be probably drafted higher than between that 50 and 59. But that's another guy I really like. And Benito, that guy Benito Thomas, for whatever the reason, he's falling in a lot of draft boards for whatever the reason. So I don't know if he has some issues, but every draft, every time I do a mock draft, he keeps falling down, and a lot of people are saying that even the scouts are saying he's falling down. There has to be a reason why he's falling down that low because he's a late first round talent. I don't get that. All right. David says, which center have you rescheduled? I think he's talking to someone in the chat. YTC says, Linderbaum and Lindstorm for me. Out of these two offensive line players, who do you like the most?
Oh, I mean, if it was between those two, Linderbaum is awesome. He's the center for Iowa. He'll be gone in the first round, and I don't think we're going to trade up all the way to the first round for a center, especially when we still have Alex Mack this year. As for Lindstrom, really like Lindstrom from Boston College. I like Cole Strange, Cam Jurgens. There's a number of center prospects that'll probably be in that, third, fourth, fifth round that I think would be ideal because they get a year to sit behind Alex Mack, learn the scheme, learn from one of the best centers of the last 10 to 15 years, and then just basically slide right in. So, and take over for Alex Mack in 2023. So, Linderbaum's awesome. I ended up not really looking at him too much because I just know the Niners don't have a shot at him. But anytime I've seen Iowa play, which again isn't that much, he looks like he would be a great 49er, but he'll be long gone, unfortunately. With the offensive line. Interesting. Yeah, Cam Jurgens, I agree with CG there. I think Cam Jurgens from Nebraska would be solid too.
And then Asante Samuel Jr., I don't want to be reminded. Isaiah Thomas should be available round 4. Cool. And of course, this guy is an Oklahoma Sooner, so he no matter what, he will always rep those players. YTC says I had Linderbaum going to Washington. That's some really good information. And Benito to the Patriots. Oh man. Jason Poe told me he's been working out at center, so that is really good news. He's also working out at the center position. I did a 7-round mock draft, and he was there at the 6th or 7th round, my second to last pick, and at the value pick. That's why I picked him, the value pick. So again, there are a lot of positions. Corner is very deep. Probably like the 10 corners are going to be quality players. Probably the first 4 or 5 will be automatic start, but the 10 corners. So teams don't have to reach for corners. Edge rushers are falling, which is a really good for the Niners because we always go edge rushers. Crazy Juice says, I was more into J.C. Horn, but I like Asante Samuel Jr. as well. Yep. Asante Samuel Jr., for a lot of people who don't know, is one of the best boundary corners and a very good deep threat corner. He's a stick-on corner, very really physical. He's able to blitz as well. There's a lot of things why people would talk about Patrick Surtain, all because he went to Alabama. But Asante Samuel Jr. is your all-purpose corner that could do a lot. Now, you want a good all-purpose corner, but unfortunately, he's on the Chargers, and the Chargers got someone really, really good. So, anyway.
Yeah, I know we were talking about edge players a little bit. The guy who, I really like, because I know that we definitely need that speed edge rusher to complement Bosa. I really do like Sam Williams from Ole Miss. A little bit of a smaller guy, but could be in that D Ford-esque type role. I think he did have an off-the-field issue a couple of years ago, so maybe that drops him down a little bit. But I think in the 3rd round, if Sam Williams is there, I'd be really happy to take him because Ole Miss, he's a smaller guy, and Ole Miss, for some reason, they would play a lot of 3-down linemen and have him as one of those guys, and he was just getting swallowed up. But I think in like a Ford, like the defense that we run in San Francisco, I think he would actually be a really good fit and could really give him a year or two, learn from like the coaches and, practicing every day with like Bosa and whatnot. That would be, I think he could turn out to be a really solid player in the middle rounds.
Mm-hmm. Tristan Taylor played everywhere except right guard from what he told me. So maybe we'll look into his schedule to work out with the 49ers. Nice. And then David says center Donovan West and Luke Fortner should be a reach in the late 3rd round. Yeah. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to, what the Niners are going to do with that 61st pick and, what they're going to do down the road when it comes to how they're going to fill up the roster, I still think the Niners are going to do what I think they're going to do. Edge rusher or a guard or center in the first pick. Then they're going to go edge rusher, guard, or center, whoever they didn't pick. And then our 105th pick, which is our compensatory pick, we will get a corner. So I think that's how they're going to address it. And now, if I'm right, if that comes true, oh my gosh, one of my first ever predictions in my life. I will be so happy if that does happen. So I'm gonna see how my prediction goes. I'm gonna try and see what happens. So I think this is a good time on this podcast to say we're either gonna go edge rusher or offensive line player guard on the 93rd pick, edge rusher, guard or center, whoever we did not get, and then cornerback at the 105 pick. So we'll see how that works out. If that happens, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to be so happy.
Well, if that happens, I'm going to ask you for the lottery numbers.
anyway, but before we end this wonderful, wonderful program, because I know you're a busy man, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But before we go, I just want to let everybody know. I want you to check out Shifty 49er Talk on his channel. He's slowly getting up there close to the 500 subscriber mark, I think. Let me know if I'm close enough. But this is one last time before we go. Let the fans know who you are, what you do, where they can find you, and any social media platforms where people can check you out and follow you as well.
Cool. Yeah. So Shifty 49ers Talk is the channel. As the name suggests, mostly talk 49ers stuff, whether it's breaking news during the season, previewing the game, live streaming the game, then reviewing the game after it's over. Whatever breaking news, I'll give my thoughts on it. If there's any groundbreaking NFL news, I like to cover that. Draft talk, I've been doing a lot of free agent moves, things of that nature. Currently working on a little bit of a documentary deal. It's going to be covering the entire Mike Nolan era of the 49ers. So that's going to be really cool. I'm really excited. That's coming along really well, actually, so far. And I can't wait to put that out there. So in those long, dog days of summer that Niner fans will, have something kind of fun to watch there. And yeah, that's about it. In terms of Twitter, I don't tweet that often, but I'm on there quite a bit. I mean, somewhat, just to really see kind of what breaking news and whatnot. And although I'm not on there too much, but my Twitter handle is Kalen. That's Kalen. Kalen's Take. And yeah, that's about that. And I love doing these podcasts and whatnot with John Jay. Other content creators like CG is out there too. I just love talking football. So, and if you're a Niner fan or NFL fan, like all that kind of talk, then definitely check it out. Subscribe, it helps a lot, and I really do appreciate anyone who comes to check out the videos and to subscribe to the channel. It means a lot.
Yeah. Well, just like you said, everybody, check out my boy Shifty 49er Talk. Let's try to get him to 500 subscribers. As I mentioned, me and him are going to be doing this after probably the second week of May. We'll have a regular schedule, and we'll let you know when it's going to happen. But in the off season, me and Shifty will be hosting this podcast, talking off season stuff as well, and then just being 49er fans, giving a little perspective, like what we can give you and things to talk about as well. And of course, my other stuff as well with my Gridiron podcast, network. We're gonna have the NFC West. I had my boy Payo time on, so now my Cardinals buddy. I'm not gonna spoil who he is, but he's gonna be trying to hop on this weekend, if not probably later next week. Of course, I've had the Falcons fan, I've had the Chargers fan, and I'm gonna get the Tennessee Titans guys. Really good dudes out there from the great state of Tennessee. They live in Nashville, home area of the Tennessee Titans. So next week, we're going to be introducing more people part of the network as we continue to grow this network as well. I'm very proud of what I created, and I'm very proud to have met Shifty. I'm honored to have him on this great network and our wonderful podcast. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, likewise, John. It's great. It's great doing this kind of work together, man. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate that too, CG, with that comment. That's awesome. Means a lot.
Anyway, I wanted to read my boy Nelson before we go. I said, I'm going to subscribe to your channel. God bless you. Go Niners. And Nelson's the nicest dude. But with that said, everybody, this guy right here is John Jay. The guy over here is Shifty Sports Talk. Get him to 500 subscribers, please. And maybe 1,000 in the near future. But with that said, everybody, I'm John Jay. This is the 49ers Ultimate Report. You guys have a good rest of your Wednesday and a good rest of your week. and go Niners.